One of the funnest things about the early days of Pixar is we were just so small.
In 1991, Pixar moves into this giant building in Point Richmond. We only used maybe a quarter of the space. You'd hear and tumbleweeds going down these empty hallways.
So we just started riding around on scooters.
Somebody had the idea to actually race the scooters.
We had this whiteboard on the wall, and we would record our times, and we'd see how fast we could go down this long hallway, loop around through the warehouse, and come back. Part of the thrill was that it was a convoluted maze. There were 2 90-degree turns in it, and you had to go through several doorways. Well, Tom Porter, one of the original guys, always there, and he is one of the most competitive people on the planet. And he's very athletic. And he just got the best time, and nobody could beat it. We're there late one night, burning the midnight oil, and John gets on one of the scooters and decides that he's just gonna try to beat Tom Porter's time, because it hasn't been beaten in forever.
And he gets some really amazing time, which beat Tom Porter's.
And he was so proud that even though it was the middle of the night, he got on the phone, called Tom Porter, woke him up, didn't even say hello, said his time, and Tom Porter just said, "I'll be right there."
And the next thing we know, Tom Porter's there.
I think in his sweats or still in his pajamas, just like literally jumped out of the bed, got in the car, and proceeded to do the route again and again as fast as he could. Because there was no way he was going to go back home and not beat it.
And he comes back and he's bloody because he is wiped out somewhere along the line and he's just got blood going down his arm, but he beat the time.
He had just gone full tilt. That was a very good example of, in a weird way, what a typical week or day was when we were a small group. Dink, dink.
Before Pixar was in this, beautiful kind of custom-built building, the animation department just was located sort of just in this huge warehouse pit. And the ceilings in the pit were really, really high.
One afternoon, these animators were trying to throw these little toys and get them lodged up in the ceiling, but they weren't able to stick them in there. They saw me being this big guy, and they're like, he can do it. So they gave me ham. And so I reeled back and chucked him super hard, and then pop, it broke through the insulation. And he stuck up in the ceiling, and we all lost our minds. And then, here, do this one, do Lenny. And I chuck Lenny up there, and pop, Lenny goes into the insulation. Everybody's, whoa, Lenny, yeah! And his little eye was still looking down at us, like, hey, guys. He looked happy to be up there.
The crowd got bigger and bigger. It's like, Dylan, Dylan.
And then we had this Pinocchio doll that had this plastic head and then this ragdoll body. They used to beat this thing up.
We just love to abuse it. And so then it became a question, naturally, of, well, how do we get Pinocchio up in the ceiling?
So by the time somebody handed me this Pinocchio doll, there were 80 to 100 people there. And so I reel back and I chuck him up, but he lands, pop, to the side and falls back down, leaving this huge dent there. And everybody explodes, whoa, whoa, do it again, Pinocchio, Pinocchio, Pinocchio. And so I reel back and I unleash everything I have. Poof! And I unleashed so much that I ended up falling back down on the ground in the recoil. And I hear this pop, and there's silence. And they pick me up, and they're shaking me around, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And then I look up, and wouldn't you know it, there's Pinocchio, his head lodged in the ceiling, his little body dangling down below him, his feet still swaying. And at that moment, his little pants just, dink, fall down around his ankles. And then everybody, rah, rah. I think we threw things in the ceiling because none of us had girlfriends.
We didn't need girlfriends. Animation was our girlfriend.
Dink, dink.
In 1993, John Lasseter was the director of Toy Story, and he drove the most humble, utilitarian car possible.
The thing that amazed me was not that, oh, he was such a nice guy or he was so open. It was the death box car the guy drove. The seats were so blown out, he had T-shirts pulled down over the back.
outside it was kind of like all, oxidized. There's no waxing that car ever again.
I'm just like, come on, dude. You must be making decent money. It's like, for the rest of us, at least, buy a decent car so we can, live vicariously through you.
Then, of course, Toy Story comes out. It's a huge success. And Steve Jobs went to John and said, John, this is not that safe. I can't have the head of my company creatively driving around in a car that has like 500,000 miles on it. So in my memory, what happened is Steve just bought John a black Volvo, the safest car possible. Somebody should have made a coffee table out of that car. There's a lot of John in that car.
Dink, dink.
In the fall of '98, when A Bug's Life finished, Toy Story 2 was evaluated by John Lasseter and some of the other directors, and they decided that it needed to get completely rewritten. I was the editorial manager. On a standard film, editorial can be a little nuts. Now, you take the fact that we were having to make this film in about 7 or 8 months. It was normally a 4-year process. Every single hour was like a ticking clock. We were frequently actually working 36 to 48 hours straight. It was like a psych experiment. Okay, there's a two-way mirror somewhere with some psychologist in a white coat saying, now make the avid crash. People bursting into tears. Just a crazy, crazy amount of drama around everything. We had an editor who hated tomatoes. And again, 36 hours in, sandwiches would come in, and for whatever reason, there was a tomato on the sandwich. The editor freaks out that there's a tomato on my sandwich, because you just had no perspective. It was just madness. I actually think it's an example of the tightest film that's ever come out of the studio. I don't think there's a wasted frame in it. And if we'd had 3 years, the movie would have been any better. I think the movie might have actually suffered from having more time.
When making a film like Toy Story 2, we use a bunch of Linux and Unix machines. On those kinds of machines, there's a command, RM star, that removes everything on the file system as fast as it can.
Have you ever accidentally dropped something out of your pocket while the toilet is flushing? That's RM star. Somebody had run RM star on the drive where all of the Toy Story 2 files were kept, and things just started to disappear.
Woody's hat disappeared, and then his boots disappeared. And then as we kept checking, he disappeared entirely. Woody's gone. Seconds later, looking up, the rest of the characters on the show, Buzz, Potato Head, Ham, and Rex, had all vanished. And soon after that, whole sequences, Toy Barn and Andy's Room, were disappearing off the disk drive. Right in front of our eyes.
If you had 20 or 30 people working for a solid year, you could recreate all of that work erased in probably about 20 seconds.
So I grabbed the phone, transfer me to systems, ah! So they transferred me to the systems group. And I said, unplug the machine, just pull it out of the wall. Pull it out. Well, we can't pull it out of the wall because pull it out of the wall, pull it out. Plug the machine back in, take a look at it. Wow, a lot of the film's gone. In fact, most of it. Okay, we better tell Galen, technical director of the film.
I remember thinking, wow, this is really bad, but no worries. We're going to get our backups, and
we realized that the backups we had were actually bad.
What do you mean backups have failed for the last month and we don't have any backups?
At this point, Galen mentioned to me in a meeting that she thought she had a copy of the film at her house.
So as a mother who wanted to see her children, I needed to have a computer at home. And so I would copy the entire film to my computer.
We got the machine, wrapped it in blankets and pillows, and put seatbelts all across it in the back seat.
Talk about a backseat driver. Slow down. Oh, easy, careful. He was rocking and, mumbling to himself and coaching me along.
Got back to Pixar, and 4 or 5 of us carried it in like you would an Egyptian pharaoh. Okay, boot it up. Machine turns on. Oh, look, there's the movie.
Thanks to Eli, my newborn baby Eli, and my need to work from home, we had a backup of Toy Story 2.
Bing, bing.
When we moved into the new building, you know, everybody's doing all this cool stuff with their cubes. Some people are building shacks and things looking like, you know, they're out in the Wild West, like a mining camp. So I moved into this office, and there's like a little tiny door, and it had a key in it. I opened that door, and there was this air conditioning access vent. It opened up into this huge space. I just thought, wow, how cool would it be to build like a secret spot? So it started with just Christmas lights. And then I was putting fur in there, like faux fur, pillows and shelving units. I put a camera in there so I could see if anyone was coming. One day, Andrew Stanton was on a walkthrough for Nemo, I think it was. He was like, "Where's Gordon?" And so I was in there. And so he stuck his head in. Like, I thought I was gonna get fired, you know, or something, or get in trouble, or, you know, something. And he was like, "Oh, cool." And then he started showing up with John Lasseter, and then John Lasseter, of course, loved it. And then famous people started showing up. So I'd be sitting in my office, "Hey, Andrew, we're coming to the office," and it would be like big Hollywood stars, famous musicians, world-famous photographers, sports stars, directors, legendary animators, you know, you name it. They would all want to come in and have a drink. I mean, I would be working, and then Steve Jobs and John Lasseter would show up. You know, I was like the host. I had a jacket. I had my little fez, like a martini mixer. There was like a whole band in there once where they did a whole performance. There was a whole entire soccer team in there at one time. Then you'd have like bigwigs come in, but it was like this place that they had to bring people. It was strange because everybody had to crawl through. It was just an awkward position to be in. Some of the stories I heard were pretty unbelievable. If those walls could talk, it'd be really something here.
Whenever I give a tour of Pixar, mandatory, the first stop is the best room at Pixar. It's not our world-class theater. It's not the amazing render farm. It's not even John Lasseter's phenomenal toy collection. Nope, none of these. It's the room where we keep the cereal.
Pixar has a cereal bar. Not just any cereal bar. It has the granddaddy of cereal bars. And cereal has definitely played an interesting and integral part of how we make our movies at Pixar.
The cereal bar is like this big, long row of almost every kind of cereal you can imagine.
It is made of high-quality plexiglass with the finest decal labels. We range from grape nuts to muesli, and then down to Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cocoa Puffs, all the childhood vices.
And it does sort of give you that same glee of standing in the cereal aisle, doesn't it? Something magical about that.
So there's people eating cereal in meetings. There are people eating cereal at their desks. There are people eating cereal in screening rooms. You even see people eating cereal on scooters.
It kind of makes sense that we fueled these films with vast amount of free cereal. Makes sense.
My name is Tia Cratter. I've been at Pixar 16 years, and I have quit every year for the past 11 years.
Tia Cratter. She's one of the most amazing, talented artists here. She's worked on just about every film.
I grew up in a family of practical jokesters. It's April 1st, 1998, something like that. So I emailed the entire company and said, "I'm leaving Pixar. Goodbye." And I got about 20 to 30 people that bid. A couple of women in the production office actually went out and ordered this beautiful little chocolate cake. The benefits were so good that I just thought, I have to do this every year.
I just fell for it. She said a nice goodbye, but it was April 1st that she sent the mail, and halfway through the mail you realize, you know, she's not quitting, because she's usually in the mail off to do some super bizarre thing like Art Direct Tron 2, or...
I've quit to go airbrush monster trucks. I've quit because I went to work in a wax museum, And 1 year I had an affair.
And there's just enough truth in her email that if you didn't know her, you would buy it, you know, and it always causes a stir.
Steve Jobs believed my letter on 3 separate occasions. Fact.
We finally got Tia back. She sent the mail. It was obviously April Fool's Day. It must have been on a Friday or something. She wasn't there. So what we did is we had her whole office packed up. We even changed the door. She came back, key didn't work. Then when she finally got it open and went in, and all her stuff was in literally box up, floor to ceiling. But it didn't stop. She quit again this year.
It is so much fun.
We were going to all these birthday parties, and we'd be like,
because they're every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes, you gotta go.
Somebody's gotta have a birthday, and you gotta eat the crappy cake.
You eat the cake, and you stand around. You gotta get back to work, you know? You're doing this 5 days a week. We're okay, no more birthdays. We're gonna do one birthday party a year.
Everybody's birthday, we're celebrating it, but we're doing it once.
So we order a cake that's supposed to say, "Happy birthday, gang," and the cake says, "Happy birthday, Gary." And the poor Trisha who ordered the cake is going, "Oh my God, it says happy birthday, Gary." I said, "No, perfect. Gary is every man."
Because on that movie, there was no Gary.
There was no Gary.
The idea was, instead of a million crappy parties,
we'd have one good one.
One good party. Right? Yeah, I thought that was a good idea.
It worked. It worked great. It was perfect. Especially because you could do it, you didn't have to do it only once a year. Like if morale was going, things were going bad, I think it's time to fire up Gary's birthday.
I worked on the movie Cars, and I came on pretty early in the story process. And the world of the cars wasn't really developed yet. We knew they could drive, but there wasn't much else we knew that they could do. Like, how do they pick up things? The only appendage they had was this antenna, and it kind of looked a little creepy. This, like, independent moving thing. There's this one scene I got when McQueen comes back and he tells Sally, "Radiator Springs is back on the map." And the script says he produces a map and shows her. And I was like, okay, how does McQueen produce a map? He can't open his doors because that's where his brains are. I thought, well, his trunk, he could open his trunk possibly. So the first little round I did was he just had a rolled up map on top of his trunk, which was fine. He kind of kicks it off and it lands on the ground. Radiator Springs is on the map. But then I started thinking, what other ways could there be to produce a map? So I have one where he backs up to Sally and opens up his trunk and a map unfolds. Then some of the other guys started getting involved. We just kind of went off on all these possibilities. The king comes into Radiator Springs and he goes, "Hey, I found this map, you guys are on the map." One where he draws a map with his wheels. I think there's one where he closes his eyes and opens them, and the map is printed on his eyelids.
Yeah, we can do this. True.
And then we started doing weird things, like where McQueen stands up on his 2 back tires, and it's plastered to his undercarriage there, and one where he sticks out his tongue, and it's on his tongue. A projector from his eye that does a hologram of the world, and there's a map. Then we started going a little crazy, like Dan Scanlon drew one where it comes out of his tailpipe. Steve Purcell loved drawing monkeys in cars, and so the monkey produces the map. Oh yeah, there's one where McQueen says, "Hey Sally, I got a new map book. Open it up and turn to page 4." And she stares at it, and because she doesn't have fingers, she can't open it up. So they just stare at it, and then 150 years later, they're still sitting there. I think after all that, it was basically like, why does he even need to show her a map?
I hear this place is back on the map.
Really? Oh, well, there goes the town.
Halloween matters at Pixar. People go crazy. This is so funny to see time and time again what people come up with. The stage was set for a Halloween costume contest, which they held at noon. The grand prize was 2 tickets anywhere American flies in the world. And of course, when there's something to play for, people play hard. I was determined to express myself at Halloween, and I wanted to win. So I decided I was gonna be the baby from Tin Toy. I'm a big guy, former rugby player, 6'4", and I'm gonna be 295 pounds of 1.5-year-old in a giant foam diaper, handmade, with syrup drooping out of my mouth, and me banging toys trying to get that little tinny toy. And I convinced my girlfriend at the time, hey, Ann, I said, can you shave off all my body hair? The giant baby was a little more than people probably wanted to see of me. When I came out on stage and crawled around on all fours, the shrill happiness, but yet also kind of shock and disgust was overwhelming. It was great. And I did win. I ended up going to Vegas for my honeymoon for a weekend with my newly wedded wife who took a chance on me after shaving off all my body hair. Dink, dink.
The animators are the actors in the studio.
In most cases, animation departments will do something off-kilter towards the end of the production.
Competitions, or building crazy offices, or having wild parties that have a theme.
So instead of kind of doing something at the end, we decided to start it off with a bang.
We're gonna shave our heads and our beards down to the skin as a way to have a clean start.
It was a clean start.
A clean start.
Clean start. And Lee, he had this long flowing mane of hair. It was like a black stallion.
That became a target for the animators.
We were like, Lee, come on, what do you think? You know, this would be great. Shave your head with us, you know, bonding. And he was like, no. So we made a big spectacle out of it. And there's nothing that rallies the troops, and there's nothing that can suck your director in than spectacle.
The way it felt down there, you could hear the drum beat, you know, shave your head, shave your head. You think, sure, I want to be one of them. I want to be accepted. And you could see animators who weren't thinking they were going to cut their hair stepping up.
And we're like, Lee, Lee, Lee. And he would inch a little closer, and he would inch a little closer. And then finally, he sat down in the chair. Took the clippers, had this gorgeous head of hair. Then what you had to do, you were supposed to not cut your hair or shave your beard.
And the last man standing is the winner of something. And I remember Lee was just like, I'm not gonna give up. You guys are gonna look ridiculous, but I'm gonna win. We went for, I don't even know how many weeks.
And slowly people would drop off. They just couldn't handle it anymore. My beard outgrew my hair at a ratio of like 3 to 1. I was a looker.
We all started to look like crazy people.
I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Bobby brokered a deal where we would all shave our faces.
We decided each day you could take off one section of facial hair. So we got some insanely crazy looks all through this week as we were taking pieces off. Part of the hijinks that goes on in animation is the sense that we're all in this together.
I don't think the movies would be nearly as good if we didn't feed the creativity with some extracurricular fun.
Most of the time, Pixar is exactly what you'd expect of a workplace. It's full of incredibly dedicated people, and we gotta make movies. But then there's this one day where somebody's hair gets shaggier, a lot of people make these very strange motions, and everyone just basically turns into rock and roll. It totally takes over the studio.
I believe it started in 2008. There was a battle of the bands between the story team versus the animation team. So they did it in the animation pod. There's a small space packed full of sweaty Pixar people, and both of these bands rocked out. And then a number of bands started to form around the studio. And they all had really funny names as well. Story's band was called Exposition.
You know, Schnittmeister is the editorial band.
There was another band that was all ladies. They were called Pixar.
Clown Car, which is several TDs.
TD stands for Technical Director.
It started in the atrium, the first Palooza.
They had 2 separate stages with 2 drum kits, 2 sets of amps, and people packed the atrium. They were all so joyous at seeing their fellow Pixarians on stage. There were all these beach balls bouncing around. When our band came off the stage, there were all these interns crowded around, and they wanted us to sign their beach balls. It was so surreal. What we decided to do in the next year was to take it outside.
We had one stage, we had, I think, 8 bands.
We also had areas set up for children, so we had face painters.
Like rocker face paint.
Giant pig floating in the back.
And we just kept growing and growing. So now we have an inside stage for the DJs and 2 outside stages. We've got about 25 performers, not counting DJs.
The Palooza is absolutely an employee-driven event. Nobody puts Pixar Palooza on for us. We put it on for each other.
So you get these really interesting mashups. People from facilities and Pixar University.
People in systems and telecom.
Even the posters and the t-shirts are designed by people from the mailroom or the cafe or the studio store.
The best thing, I tell you, to watch these shows and see people that you've seen around the studio from lunch, but get up on stage and just become seriously rock gods.
My name's Michael Fredrickson. I often work on our sets here, but I'm also the master of ceremonies for our Halloween celebration. At Pixar, we take not being serious on Halloween pretty seriously. It feels like a bunch of kids playing in a place of work where, of course, you should be able to do that, especially in a place that's trying to tell stories the way we do. And Halloween is this really cool, almost improv opportunity. You see a lot of people sitting at their desk animating, dressed up, sitting there dialing in some animation on Buzz. And we all get together in the atrium, have lunch. People come up on stage, they can show off the craftsmanship of what they made. If they want to do like a little interaction with a host or a performance in character, that can be really great. Stuff's happening all over. It's just very fun chaos. A lot of people use their favorite character from a movie they worked on or that we just did as inspiration. Jake Brooks came dressed as Marlin with all these long balloons around him. That's this swaying sea anemone. And then he was holding his son dressed up as Nemo inside. Sonoko Knishi is this amazing craftswoman, and she makes full-on theme park grade versions of our characters. Baby Kevin from the end of Up. This amazing furry Remy. One year she came as Mike Wazowski at the beginning of MU, so just like this adorable little one-eyed monster. We used to give away these prizes at Halloween that had a dollar amount. They were like actually valuable. You might be jealous of the person who won one of them. But I thought we might be able to better reinforce what Halloween is actually about here if the prizes at the end weren't so valuable. If they were these grassroots improvisational things that were an extension of the fun part. The first year, the grand prize was that Ed Catmull, the president of our company and creator of foundational concepts in computer graphics, would serve as technical support for the next crazy computer question that your parents have. So next time one of your parents calls you up and is like, "The sound doesn't work and my printer's out of ink," we have him call up president of our company and he can try to debug what's going on. The coolest costume prize, craft-wise, we'll take pictures of you from every possible angle so we can have you 3D printed and put on a trophy that we put in the trophy case right next to the Oscars. I'm like, well, we better keep winning Oscars or I'm gonna crowd them all out with these tchotchkes. There's been smaller ones like you and whoever you dressed up with get to mow the lawn at Pixar on the riding lawnmower, or you immediately get to come with me and we're gonna throw watermelons off the roof. One of the prizes one year is a catered lunch in the Pixar elevator. Probably the biggest spectacle of a prize that we ever did was this idea that we're gonna have this big, huge red button. You push this button, And all of a sudden, the atrium just goes haywire. A wacky, wild, inflatable tube man busted out of a gift-wrap box and started waving around. We set off an enormous confetti cannon with orange and black confetti. And then out of our main theater comes the entire Berkeley marching band, dressed up as skeletons. I think a little bit of chaos is really important to balance out all the rationality and rigidity it takes to get something really difficult done. Halloween just happens to be a day to do a lot more of the chaotic, crazy stuff.